Hello, everyone, and welcome to this ISM Trust workshop on music production. I'm Ruth McPherson, Head of Charity Development at the ISM, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Zylo Aria, founder of Music Production for Women, who we're partnering on this workshop. Before we begin, just a few things to note. During the presentation, please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to answer these at the end. And do keep an eye on the chat box where we'll be dropping in some useful links. If you experience any technical difficulties, let us know in the chat box and we'll attempt to resolve them. And if you wish to use them, subtitles are available to enable at the bottom of your screen. The webinar is being recorded and we'll share the recording with you afterwards, as well as a feedback survey, which we'd be very grateful if you'd fill out. It really helps us to improve future webinars. The ISM Trust is the ISM's sister charity, which offers high quality professional development to everyone working in the music sector. Through the ISM Trust, we give back to the sector and support and empower music professionals to succeed. We produce award-winning events, training and resources which are largely completely free to access. And now I'm very pleased to hand over to Zylo Aria, who's going to show you how to navigate production software and will break down and rebuild the production in one of Miley Cyrus's tracks. Whether you want to start producing your own music or learning a few tricks of the trade to understand how to improve your productions, this is a fantastic opportunity to expand your musical horizons. Zylo is an artist, a producer, and the founder of online learning platform Music Production for Women. Through this platform, she's determined to break down barriers women face when approaching music tech by creating a learning space that's supportive and safe. She won a Top 50 East London Innovator of 2020 award and a place on the She Said So Top 100 Alt Power List. She's also a director and treasurer for the Music Producers and Engineers Guild of Australia, as well as a national committee member of Women in Music Australia. So thank you very much for joining us, and over to you, Zylo.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for that introduction, and welcome everyone to this session. I am so glad to be here with you all today. And I hope at the end of this session, you all leave with some new information and feel excited and inspired to get into music production as well. So now that you've learned a little bit about me, I would love to learn a bit more about you all today. And can you start off by telling me what role in music describes you best? And we're going to put up a poll, which should appear for you in a second. So if you want to just pick which one is the most relevant to you, and it's multiple choice, so you can pick more than one if more than one category fits you. And it'd be good to know who we have in the room. So we've got a few answers coming in here. That's great. And we'll give you another 5 seconds to do that. So quick 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so we'll end that so that you can see the results as well. So we've got quite a few singers, instrumentalists and composers, which is great, and also some producers, one DJ, welcome, and a music teacher and a few others as well. So that's good, lovely mix of people here. And the next thing I would love to know from you all is, what is your current level of production knowledge? And this is no judgment here, but it would be good for me to understand where you are at. So that poll should come up for you as well in a minute. So if you've never produced before, you're a beginner, it's perfectly fine. So we've got a few answers coming in here as well. Great. Thank you, everyone, for giving me a bit of background on where you're at. Awesome. So cool. So we'll give you another 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right, cool. So we'll end that one. And you should be able to see that now as well. So we've got a lot of people who have never produced before and are beginners. So welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. I love it when people take their first steps into production. So that's great. Intermediate as well. We've got a few. Excellent. You should also take something away from this session today. And one advanced person. So welcome as well. It might be a little bit more on the beginner to intermediate side for you, but I hope there's something that you can take away from it as well. So thank you everyone for sharing that with me. And before we jump into Ableton, I want to spend a quick 2 minutes just talking about what do you actually need to produce music. And the reason I want to mention this is because I think there's a little bit of confusion around it, or people feel like they need to go to a music store and drop like $2,000 before they've even started with production. And if you're thinking that's what you need to do, I would say please don't do that, because I've made that mistake before and like 10 years later ended up selling things that I've never used. So I think a great way to start is starting with what you have and then building from there. So the first thing you need is a laptop. So start with whatever laptop you have, assuming that that is powerful enough to produce music. If not, I'll talk to you a little bit more about specs in a minute. But the next thing we need is a pair of headphones, and you can get a decent pair for like £80 to start with. And the next thing is some sort of production software. And I would say start with whichever software that you feel most comfortable with. I'm not one to say that you have to use one over another. It just depends what you kind of feel, what you like the workflow of. I personally use Ableton Live, and there were two main reasons why I chose that. Firstly, I did find the workflow in Ableton quite fast, and there were some things that I found that you could do in Ableton in one step where it maybe took 2 or 3 in some other production softwares. And the second reason was because I wanted to be totally self-sufficient, including when I was playing live as well. And if you're thinking of performing your productions live, you'll often need to know how to use Ableton anyway. And it's called Ableton Live for a reason, because it was created with that in mind. So I thought, if I need to learn that soon anyway, I might as well get started with my production in there as well. So if at this stage you're thinking, oh, okay, that's good, but I need a bit more information, like what kind of laptop do I need? What headphones? What about if I'm recording music? What do I need then? And then, you know, studio monitors, all of that. Then I've created this little gift for you, which is our getting started checklist, which would have saved me a lot of money, and it puts things in really simple terms as well, and gives the recommendations on where to start and how to build from there if you want to further build your home studio as well. So please feel free to grab a copy of that there, and I believe there might be a link there. Thank you, Macaulay, perfect. So you can grab that there as well. So now we are going to jump into Ableton, and I know there are some people using some other softwares as well today. So hopefully you will be able to translate some of the things that we're doing today into Logic or whatever else you're using. But the specific commands here will be on Ableton, but we'll, I'm sure, still get something out of that. So let me jump into Ableton now. And out of curiosity, do we have any Ableton users here? Just let me know in the chat if it's a yes, just so I can get an idea if someone has used Ableton here before. Josephine, yes. And Andrea, yes. Alma, yes as well. Richard, Cubase, and yes, Soundtrap. Okay, awesome, Lorna. FL, okay, cool. So we've got a bit of a mix here. That's great. So I'm going to give you a little whistle-stop tour of Ableton to start with, because we do have some people that are new and also some people that haven't used Ableton before. So if you are intermediate, you can have a little relax for a few minutes and then we can come back. So the first thing I want to mention here is that there are 2 views in Ableton. So when we open Ableton Live, you will automatically see this view here, which is called Session View. And Session View is really good to be a non-linear way of producing. What I mean by that is this track could be your drum track, this track could be a synth track, this one could be a bass track, for example, and you can have multiple different drum ideas and bass ideas and synth ideas and audition them together to come up with a nice pattern that you like. So that can be really good to be a brainstorming tool where you're just kind of having a play around. Also, if you are playing live, often you'll be using this view as well. And then there is arrangement view, and you toggle between the two using this toggle up on the top right. So now I'm in arrangement view. Arrangement view is a very linear way of producing. So if I press play, then you can see the playhead only moves in one direction there, and you've got your time starting at 0, 0 going up, and your beats up the top starting at 1 and going up as well. And for the purposes of today, we're going to stick with arrangement view because it looks a bit more familiar, especially if you're coming from another software as well. So the next thing I want to talk about is the control bar, which is up here. So we've got our tempo. So it automatically is sitting at 120 beats per minute. We can click and drag that down to make our song slower or bring it up to make it faster. And if you're not sure what tempo you want your song to be at, then we can just tap it in. So we can say, oh, I want this song to be like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we tap that in, and Ableton says that's roughly 99 beats per minute. And then we can set that in, and that's all good. Then we've got our time signature here, which is automatically at 4/4. Again, we can click and move that to make it the time signature that we are looking for as well. Then we have this metronome as well. So if we turn that on and now I play this, then you should hopefully be able to hear the metronome in the background there. And then we have the play, stop and record up here, which automatically plays, stops and records into our track here. And those are the functions that you'll be using about 95% of the time here. So I won't go too much into detail on some of the other things there. The next thing I want to talk about is the 3 different types of tracks that Ableton has. So there's audio tracks, MIDI tracks, and return tracks. So when we talk about audio tracks, these contain audio wave files or your recordings. So if we are recording a voice or an instrument like a guitar or a piano or something, then we would use an audio track to do that. And we can also use audio wave samples in there as well. So if I just grab some sort of sample, sure, let's grab that. And I'm just going to drag and drop that. And now if I really zoom in, then you can see those waves, which are our wave files that sit into our audio tracks. Now that is different to our MIDI tracks. So MIDI tracks contain MIDI or computer information. So what I mean by that is if we create this MIDI track, and I'll quickly just put a few notes in here, and then I try and play this, then you can see that there is actually no sound in here. And that's because this is just computer information that says, hey, computer, can you please play this F note? And I want it to be for this long. And then I want to follow that with an A3 note and then an F sharp note here. And that's just instructions, but you actually need some sort of instrument to then play those computer instructions in there. So until I grab some sort of instrument, and then bring it into the track. So now we have an instrument that's playing these computer instructions here. So one real benefit of MIDI is that you can very easily change things. So you can go into your track, you can make your notes longer, shorter, you can add more, you can change the instrument. So you can just swap out the instrument and have something else playing those instructions. But that is a lot harder to do in an audio track to manipulate things. So it's just something to be aware as well. The last thing I want to mention very briefly is the return tracks down the bottom. So we have our reverb and delay automatically, but you can put any effects on there. And we can route the signal from our MIDI or audio tracks to our return tracks to add a bit of reverb to our track or delay to our track. But yeah, I won't go too much into detail on the return track for the purpose of today. The next thing I want to talk about is this section here, which is our browser. So this is kind of the top menu of the browser, and then this is our secondary menu in there. And this contains all of the tools that we'll be using in our track, and how we use anything is just to drag and drop it into our window over here. And the top 3 headings here, the sounds, the drums, and the instruments, these all contain MIDI instruments. Now, a very useful thing to remember is that MIDI are meanies. And what I mean by that is that MIDI only like to hang out with MIDI. So if I grab something from this heading, which is our MIDI instruments, and I try and put it into a audio track, then you see this kind of angry message on the bottom of the screen that basically says you can't do that. So anything from here, the top 3 menus, you can bring into your MIDI tracks. Then we have our audio effects, and audio love all things. So audio effects are happy to hang out with MIDI tracks, audio tracks, return tracks. They are very fine with that. So that's something to remember. And then we have MIDI effects, and again, MIDI are meanies, so they will only hang out in the MIDI tracks as well. Then I will mention here as well in the samples you can put onto your audio tracks or into sampling MIDI instruments. So you can use them in a couple of different ways. And again, those are the main things that you'll be using a lot of the time. So I won't go into detail on all of the other things there as well. The last bit I want to talk about is this section down here, which is our device viewer. So the device viewer shows you what devices are on each track. So as I click into the tracks, then that will look different. But at the moment, when we look at this track, or this track, there's nothing there because we don't have any devices on there. But if I look at this second track here, this has our MIDI instrument. And just to remember, we have to at least have a MIDI instrument in our MIDI track, in our device viewer here. Otherwise, we won't have any sound. So we must have a MIDI instrument there. In your audio tracks, you don't have to have an instrument there because the sound is actually coming from these audio wave files. But say we have this MIDI instrument here, and then we want to add some effects after that. So we can go into audio effects and then type in reverb, for example. And then I might just grab some sort of reverb in here and then just drag and drop that into my track here. And we can also put it into our audio track if we want to. And now you can see in this MIDI track, there's an instrument and then there's a reverb. And then if we want to, we can also add a delay after that and stack our effects that way. And so I can do that. And one important thing to note in your device viewer is that your signal moves through the devices from left to right. So in this case, these notes are being played by this instrument, and then that signal is going through your reverb, and then that signal is going through your delay here. It might not be very obvious why you need to know how that moves through your devices, but it will become very important, especially when we get to things like mixing as well. So just something to note there. So now if I play this, that very washy sound is these notes being played by this this instrument and then going through our devices here. And then with this, it's going to sound probably playable. Yeah. So now this audio track that we had and this wave file is going through our very washy reverb there as well. And this section here also doubles as a clip view. So if I double click into one of my clips, then it kind of deep dives into that clip here. And now you can see that wave is a lot bigger here. And then here we can go in and change the gain, we can change the pitch and do a few other things as well. And if we are in our clip view and we want to go back to our device viewer, we can very easily do that by clicking into our tracks again to go back into that. So quick recap, we've got session view and arrangement view here. We've got our control bar at the top, which controls the main functions of your track. You've got your 3 types of tracks, your audio tracks, MIDI tracks, and return tracks. And then we've got our browser here, and then we've got our device viewer / clip view down the bottom here. So how are we going so far? Can you let me know? Are you sort of are you happy? You've kind of got that main gist of it. If we haven't yet, don't worry, we'll be going into it in a bit more detail as well in our track breakdown. But Dal, yes, that's good. That's good that we're kind of we're getting there, and then we'll be breaking that down a little bit further. Fionn, great, got the gist. Artemis, excellent. All right, so now what we're going to do, yes, Jen, reverb, we can, there's kind of a lot we can go into it, but it's good that we've got the gist there. So now the exercise we're going to be doing is to break down a pop track. In this case, we're going to be looking at Miley Cyrus's Flowers. Now, who is familiar with that song? Yes, do we know it? How do we feel? Do we like it? So just let me know how many of us are kind of familiar with that track. Fionn, love it. Good stuff. Yes, love it. Link, yeah. We're going to be going through it together as well. Daughter raised her hand, David. Nice, good stuff. So the reason we're going to be doing this exercise is because I often hear from people when they're getting into production and they say, oh, Xylo, I want to make EDM or whatever it is that they want to make, but they're not sure what kind of sounds that they want to use. And a great thing to do in that case is to find some songs that you like and do a bit of active listening and to listen to what are the elements that they've used in the song, how long are different sections of the song, what kind of transitions have they used, and to, if we can, try and recreate it so that we learn a little bit about the kind of elements that have been used as well. So we're going to do this together, and we're going to do a bit of active listening and then recreate that all together. So let's go into our session here, and I'm just going to play the chorus of this song, and all together we're just going to have a listen. And as we're listening, please put in the chat what are the elements that you're hearing in this song. What are the instruments? And then we'll try and recreate that all together. All right, so let's have a go. I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand. Yes, awesome. So we've got a lot of the main elements there as well. So yes, strings, it's kind of a violin is kind of what I heard as well. So vocals, of course, drums, bass, and also some synth as well. Yes, exactly. Good stuff. And one reason that I wanted to look at this song specifically is that the production overall is quite it is simple in a way. Like there aren't loads and loads of different elements going on here, and sometimes, especially if we are starting out in production, we can feel like we need to add more and more to make a song sound full, but sometimes we actually just need to pick a few important elements and just kind of use those and strengthen those to create something kind of that's a bit catchy, if that's what we're going for. So now that we have those elements, we're going to try and recreate this, and we can start with whatever we want to. One thing that I like to start with is often drums, because it gives us a bit of a beat to then build other things around. And I'm going to show you how we could do this if we were to start that from scratch. And again, there are lots of different ways that you can create a drum beat in your production. What we're going to use today is something called a drum rack. So if we go into drums here, I'm going to grab this empty drum rack and just drag and drop it and pull it into this empty part of our window. And now what's happened is that given that this is a MIDI instrument, Ableton has created a MIDI track and put in a drum rack into the device viewer. We can do the same thing by using the shortcut Command-Shift-T to create a MIDI track and pull in a drum rack in there, and it gives us the same thing. So I'm going to close that for the moment because we've already got that. And if you're not sure what the drum rack does, you can also think of it as like a 16-pad drum pad where we can load samples onto each pad and play it like we would like a drum pad. And of course, given that this is a computer instrument, there are lots more than 16 pads in there, but we will not run out. So if we want to load samples onto there, we can go into samples, and I'm just going to do this really quickly. I'm just going to type in kick, and I'm going to not be too precious about this and just drag and drop a kick into one of the pads here. And then I'm going to grab a snare and grab that snare. And then I'm going to layer this with a clap because it was more the clap sound for me that stood out in this track. So sure, I'll just grab that. And then I'm going to put in a hi-hat in there. So I'll just grab a closed hi-hat and put that in there. And now we have the main elements of the drum beat. In this track, I heard some kind of wood blocky or like horse click clacky sound or something, and we'll grab that in a minute, but that kind of gives this song its signature, I believe. But we're going to stick to the main elements and try and create this beat to start with. And the main beat of this song is quite a simple, like 4 on the floor sort of beat. So if we go into here, and I'm just going to create a 2-bar loop. So we've got from bar 9 to bar 11, and I'm going to use Command-Shift-M, the shortcut, to create a MIDI clip here. And the shortcuts here I've got are for a Mac, but you can just switch with the command with a control. So Control-Shift-M if you're using a PC, and it's the same thing. So now we've got our MIDI clip here, and I've double clicked into my clip, and now we've got the clip view. And here I'm going to now start drawing in my beat. And the shortcut for the pencil tool, which I need, is B. So if we click B, you'll see that this turns into a pencil. And my lovely friend, who is a great YouTuber on production, calls this a bencil, which I find a really good way to remember the shortcut for the pencil. So once we have our B or our pencil, then we can put in the notes that we want. And here you can see the 1, 1.2, 1.2, 3, and 1.4. So I'm just going to put in my kick every beat. And then I'm going to put the snare on the 2 and the 4. We've got snare here and snare there. And then I'm going to add a hi-hat on every 8th note. And this is a 16th note grid. So I'm just going to put in a hi-hat everywhere here. And let's just have a listen to what that sounds like. So quite simple, nothing too interesting going on here. And I'm going to highlight all of these notes and use the shortcut Command-C to copy and Command-D to duplicate that into our 2 bars here. So now with this particular track, the hi-hats for me were quite low in volume. So I might actually highlight all of these hi-hats down here, and then you can see this velocity section here. So I'm just going to click and drag that down until we're sort of happy with it. So that for me is a good start. But of course, the samples that I've chosen really quickly don't really align that well to the song that we are looking at. So I have done this already. So I've gone and grabbed the drum rack exactly like we did here using drums and the drum rack, pulling that into our track. And then I've just got the same sample. So we have a kick, a snare, a clap, and a hi-hat. And then I've also got these wood block sort of sounds that I thought were quite characteristic to this sound and sounded kind of similar to what I heard in this track as well. So I've just pre-created a MIDI clip here. So let's just have a listen to what that sounds like. So that's not a bad start. So now I'm going to grab this 2-bar loop and use Command C to copy and Command D to duplicate that through to our loop here. So that's not a bad start. And I want to highlight every beat here. So every main beat that we've got here. And how I'm going to do that is by layering this drum rack with another drum rack, but which only has kicks and claps here. So I've done that exactly the way we did the previous one as well. So grab the drum rack here, but I've just got samples, just the kick and the clap. And let me bring in that little thing here, and let's just have a listen to what that sounds like. So very simple. It's just kind of highlighting the 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to copy and duplicate again across through to our loop as well. And let's bring this in and see what it sounds like. So it's giving it a little bit more of an emphasis on those main beats, but I want to bring my drums out a little bit more. And sometimes we can feel like we need to keep layering and layering, but sometimes a kind of simple way that you can do that is by adding a little bit of distortion to give your drums a little bit of drive and to bring them out to the front as well. So I'm going to go into audio effects here and then type in overdrive, which is Ableton's version of distortion. And under drive and color, you'll see this overdrive. And I'm just going to drag and drop that into our track here. And let's see what it sounds like without the overdrive and then bringing in the overdrive as well. So it's really kind of brought it out, but it's a bit intense. It's a little bit too much for me. So what I'm going to do is to change the dry wet of this particular effect so that I'm happy with it. And I want to quickly explain dry wet for a second, because it's something that you often come across, and you'll find it as like a knob or a fader in many different plugins. So if we have our overdrive set at 100% wet, what that means is the signal that's being generated by our drum rack here is all going through our overdrive and coming out the other side. But if we have this set at 50%, that means half of the signal that our drum rack is creating is going through our overdrive and coming out the other side, and half is not going through the overdrive and coming out dry or without overdrive. Then if we have this set at 20%, then again, 20% is going through the overdrive, 80% is going through without the overdrive. So I'm going to start with 0, which means no overdrive, and slowly bring this in to a point where I'm happy with it. Cool. So I'm happy with that. The next thing I want to do is give my drums a little bit more of a human feel. And one way that we can do that is by layering our MIDI drums with a drum loop, for example. So people feel a bit weird about using loops. I don't know why. We always kind of make it our own as well, but it's actually a great tool to use. So this is an audio track as opposed to these two, which were MIDI, because we're using a audio loop. So I'm just going to grab the loop that I have chosen here, and let's see what that sounds like as the loop on its own. So again, it's sort of highlighting those main hits there, but it's got a little bit of that high frequency information there with the kind of hi-hat cymbal-y sort of thing that's going on there. And then I'm going to use my favorite shortcut again, which is of course Command D here to bring that through to our loop. So let's see now what this sounds like bringing in the loop as well. So it's giving it a little bit more movement there. And the last thing I want to add here in my drum pattern is a little bit of like a tambourine or shaker type of sound to come in where the violin part comes into this song as well, just to give it a little bit of emphasis in that part. So again, this is an audio track and I've just got a loop here, an audio loop, and I'm just going to again use Command D to duplicate that through, and we just want this in this last section here. So let's see what it sounds like without that tambourine and bringing that in as well. So it's giving it a little bit more emphasis there when that tambourine comes in as well. So now what we want to do is develop good habits in our production. So we are going to put this into a group. So how you do that is just by holding down Shift and grabbing all of the tracks here, and then using the shortcut Command G to group our track, and then we will use Command R to rename that into drums group if we want, but I've already done that here, so I don't need to do it again, but I'm just going to close that now and put that all together. And it's great to get into these habits because we sometimes then go back to an old session and we have no idea what is going on. So I can see a question: do the other instruments in the beat have to be the same notes as the drums? Because when I make a simple drum pattern and make the piano different notes, it sounds weird. Like, I think drum tuning is something that you can pay attention to, but it's not really the most, it's not kind of the first thing that might make your song sound a bit strange, but you can actually go into your drum. So say if I go into this drum rack, we can go into our kick here, and then we can actually tune it using this transpose button if you want to tune that drum according to your keys on the piano if you want to. So just something to be aware of. So then moving on to the bass after the drums. So with the bass sound here in this song, I sort of heard a kind of played bass rather than like a synthetic bass. And if we go into this sounds, drums and instruments, then one thing that's a bit confusing is when we go into instruments, you see these kind of random words like analog, collision and drift, which don't sound like instruments at all. These are actually Ableton instruments. If you're looking for more traditional types of instruments, if we go into sounds, then often that's where you'll find them. You know, you can see your bass, your guitar, mallet, piano, all of that stuff. But in this instruments drop down, there is an Ableton instrument called tension that I actually quite like for sort of plucked basses and things like that. So I'm just going into bass here, and there was one here, electric damped bass, which I thought was a good start. So we can drag and drop that into our track here, and then you can see this electric damped bass here. And then I'm just going to grab the notes that we've got here. And you can probably find the notes of a song on Google or something like that if you want to. I've just kind of put these in by ear, so they're probably not perfect, but they'll do the job. So now let's have a listen to what this bass sounds like here. All right, so that is a good start there. And one thing I want to mention about the bass or the kind of low frequencies in your song, and this is coming into a little bit of mixing element, but sometimes we can find that these elements can clash a bit too much. So what I mean by that, I'll just quickly grab an EQ here. So I'll just put in an EQ 8, and you can see now when we play this, you can see it's sort of sitting around this, this part of our frequency spectrum. Whereas when we go into our kick drum, and I'll stop this solo as well, it often will sit in a similar part of our track frequency. So if I solo this, let's have a listen to this. Whoops. You can see now here, it's kind of sitting in a similar frequency spot. So one thing that we can do to kind of give each element its own pocket to kind of shine, we can use something called sidechain compression. So if we go into our bass, I'm just going to go into our audio effects and just type here compressor. Under dynamics, you'll see a thing called a compressor. We're going to bring that into our bass. And using this drop down, I'm going to turn on my sidechain. So what that is going to do is then ask you, where do you want me to listen to then duck this sound down? So every time the kick comes in, we want our bass to duck down a little bit. So I'm going to select the input and go into our drum rack because that's where our kick is. And then the next drop down, I'm going to select our kick pre-effects. So now, and I'm going to slowly bring down the threshold to make it really obvious. Just let me know, can you hear the difference that this compressor is creating with the sidechain on? So can you hear that kind of ducking down every beat? So yes, we're hearing that. So I'm going to make it a little bit less obvious because we don't need it to be that intense. Okay, so now the next thing I want to talk about is this sound that I heard in the song, which sounded to me a little bit like Daffy Duck, which was just highlighting certain sections of our bass notes here. So I've just copied and pasted some of our bass notes, and then I've put an instrument here that I actually found under sounds and guitar. It doesn't sound like a guitar to me at all, but you can see what these two sound like together as well. So that's very easily given our bass a little bit more texture as well. So then let's again group these, close it, and then go into our synth. So now some of you mentioned you could hear like a synth or a violin, and I under sounds actually found a thing under strings that I thought would be a good place to start called synthetic string. So I've just dragged and dropped that into here, and then you can see this synthetic string here. And I'm just going to put that in. Oops, that was not the thing. So let's grab our violin bit here. And then I've just got the notes in here. So to me, I didn't actually perfectly like any of the violin sounds. So I thought the string was a little bit closer to that as well. So I'll just solo that. Okay, so that's good. And now the last bit that we're going to talk about is our pad. So I could hear these kind of chords in the background, and they were not too loud, but they were giving a lot to the song as well. So I've used a pad sound, which I think is quite good, especially if you want longer notes rather than kind of really short, sharp notes, even though these notes aren't too long. So I went into sounds here, and then under pads, I found this one called Anna Pad, which I thought that's a good one to start with. And then I've got the chords here as well. So let's have a listen to what that sounds like. All right, so I'm just going to duplicate that through again, and let's see now what the whole thing sounds like together. And actual track. So how are we feeling there? Do we feel like we got sort of close to that? Do you feel like we kind of got near the sound? And do you feel like you learned something new today as well? Let me know, especially the people that are new to production. Do you feel like that's something that you can do for yourself, even if it's not something that's, that'll happen straight away, but at least sounds quite similar, impressive, and that all makes sense. That is great. And yeah, I just want you to realize there as well that we didn't do anything crazy or, it was all just using MIDI and audio tracks, pulling things in from our browser as well, and adding some MIDI notes. So lots of new stuff you learned there. Oh, amazing. That's really good to hear as well. And I just want to mention, if this sounds exciting to you all, then please stick with it, because I know you can do it as well. And it can be a bit hard at first, but as you do it, you get better as you go. And if it's something that you want to work with me and want to learn from me on a little bit more as well, I'll really quickly talk about our Master Your Music program. And I'll talk about this really quickly because we're actually closing enrollments Friday. So I'll keep 2 spots available for someone here if you're interested. And this program is a full program covering all the skills you need to produce and mix your music, but also learn a bit about music marketing, music business, how to create a brand around yourself as well. And there are 50 masterclasses included throughout the course of the year, with our incredible, inspiring teachers, and you'll be building a global network of musicians. I think the only continent we didn't have someone from this year was Antarctica, which is incredible. And you also get group and one-to-one mentoring sessions, feedback on your music from industry professionals, and loads more as well. So just to go through the topics that we cover throughout the year, we go through planning for success, production level 1 and 2, music marketing, music theory, vocal production, songwriting, music business, mixing level 1 and 2, performing your music, and mastering as well. So we've kind of crammed everything that you need into this program, and it's the program that I wish existed for me. And just to show you everything that's included, there are 3 different levels to join. There's the bronze, silver, and the gold. So bronze is great if you're a self-learner, you want access to all the training, but you're not too fussed about the community aspect. Silver is if you want everything in bronze, but the full access to our community, monthly mentoring, all of that. Gold is very much a personalized program, so you'll be working with me one-to-one in the gold. So the training is included in everything. So the weekly masterclasses, everything's recorded and put onto our portal if you miss anything. And the intro course you'll get access to straight away as well, so that you can start building that skill. And then for silver and gold, you get a one-to-one fast start strategy session with me. There are weekly track feedbacks, opportunities that you have, as well as monthly group coaching calls, as well as gold. You get monthly one personal one-to-one session with me every month as well. And then Ableton Live intro is included for all silver and gold students, and you get a huge discount off Ableton Suite as well, which they're really lovely to provide our students specifically. And you also get access to our Discord community, which is a lovely space to meet new people and collaborate as well. And then for gold specifically, you get monthly industry track feedback on your music, and any releases that you have over the period of working with us will go out through our social media platforms of about 22,000 people. And also I will keep you in track of your monthly goals as well, to make sure that we get you to where you want to go with your music and your vision as well. So huge amount of value that we've crammed in there for a really, really incredible price, which I've never seen out there for over a year of support. So for bronze is only $1,500 for the whole year, or £100 a month if you want to go with the monthly option. Silver is $1,900 for the whole year, or $120 a month, and gold is $2,300 for everything in there, or £140 a month. So if it's something that you're interested in, please book a one-to-one chat with me. And in that chat, we will work out, is this the right program for you? What are your goals? So I don't want anyone to do the program if it's not the right fit for them. So to book the meeting is £50, that is refundable. So in the meeting, if we decide it's the right thing, that £50 will come off the cost of the course. If it's not the right thing, it will be refunded to you, no problem at all. And as I mentioned, we are closing it in a couple of days and we're almost full already. So I've just kept aside 2 spots there for anyone from this call if you are interested in joining as well. And I think there might be a link in the chat as well. So I look forward to chatting to a few of you over the next couple of days. But otherwise, it's been such a pleasure being here with you all today. And I hope you took something away from this session. And if there are any questions that anyone has as well, please let me know. How much does that cost, Richard? Hopefully I answered that question. So starting at £1,500 or £100 a month to that. So hopefully that makes sense there as well. Any other questions? I am here for you to answer.
Thank you so much, Zylo. That was fantastic. We really learnt a lot there. And we have had some questions which were submitted in advance, so we'll maybe just go through those quickly, and then if anyone wants to ask more questions, we've got about just about 10 minutes, so if you want to pop your questions in the Q&A, and we'll go through those now. So somebody asked, do you know a free version or demo software I could use? So I know you've covered various types of software, but are there any free ones out there that you'd suggest?
Yes, yes, I am going to be at GearFest, Richard, so I'll chat to you then. I'll be there on both days. So the software, the free options, there is GarageBand. There's also Audacity, which is a free software as well. But what I usually suggest is to start with something that has the ability to grow from there as well. So Ableton and Logic have a free like 90-day trial. So I would say start with that, because if you start with GarageBand or Audacity, you're going to probably have to move on to something else anyway, and then you have to kind of learn it all new as well. So yeah.
Great.
Question.
Yeah, Fion's asked a question about the courses. Can you join just for vocal production and mixing?
Good question, Fionn. We actually don't allow that anymore, because we were allowing people to join different sections of the course, but then what we found was there was pre-knowledge that we expected students to have, and then they didn't have it, and then they didn't get that much out of that session as well. So we've kind of left it open to join the whole program. Okay. Richard, free trial on Cubase. Yes, that's true. And looking for a new laptop. Oh, yes, we might put in that getting started checklist there as well, Aileen, because that's got all the details on the kinds of laptop that we can use. Soundtrack is free, and music industry. Yes, yes, Soundtrap is free. I don't know how much in detail you can get into on that sound, Lorna, but yeah, good one to mention. Thank you.
We also had a question about plugins. Someone said, is it better to use effect plugins such as reverbs on individual tracks, or one plugin over the whole project?
Good question. So this kind of comes into an area of production and mixing that, like, there's no wrong or right way to do anything. So I'll never say you have to do this all the time, or you have to do this all the time, because it really depends what you're going for. I would maybe refrain from every track having its own reverb that are all very different, because kind of what you're doing with reverb is putting everything into a space. So whether it's a church or a hall or a bathroom or something like that. And what you don't want is all of your sounds to sound like they're in different rooms. So yeah, so in saying that, I do use some different reverbs in my tracks as well. And sometimes having them as a parallel, like parallel processing, which we didn't go through today, is sometimes better than having them as inserts in each track, because it can make it a little bit intense there. And I see a couple more questions. You can sign up next year. We're actually, the actual program is getting started in January. So you get access to our intro course now, but then the 50 masterclasses are starting next year. So you still have a bit of time to get yourself sorted. But yeah, thank you, Artemis. All good. Thanks, Ruth. Anything else?
Yeah, there was a question about vocals, or actually there was a couple. So the first one was, how do you make a vocal sound really good? And then someone else said, please, can you give some advice on doing effects for vocals, which sounds like quite a big topic potentially.
Yes, it does. And we can go into a lot of detail on vocal effects and production and all of that. But just starting with how do you get a good sound? And you might hear this from a few people, is that with everything in production, like the earlier on in the process that you can get a good sound, in this case with your vocals, is actually the recording that you get, to have that as high quality as possible, rather than trying to fix it later with effects and all of that, is kind of the best advice I can give. And the most important part of a vocal is actually the performance. And I've actually spoken to like Olga Fitzroy, who's worked with Coldplay and people like that. And she said, you'd be surprised how many high quality pop songs have like phone recordings in there, because that is where the real performance and emotion was in the song. So I would say, rather than stressing too much about quality, if we get a really good a performance, and as much as we can, you know, you don't want to be recording in a bathroom, for example, but if we have a sort of, you know, slightly dead room where there's not too much reverb, and then go from there, that's probably the best place to start.
Brilliant, thank you. Someone asked, what's the correct way to get a track to an acceptable volume before release? So a safe but also loud enough volume for all devices. Any tips on volume?
Yes, so this is kind of going into mastering a little bit, which is, I will mention, not my area of expertise, but usually I will get someone else to master my track. I think it's good to get a third party to eventually just see what you're listening to. So usually once I have my production and I've mixed it, I will send it to my mastering engineer at roughly -6 dB, like between -3 and -6 decibels. And again, I would say check this with your mastering engineer on what they like. Some people are quite specific on what they want to get. And then your mastering engineer will, oh, I'm still here. Okay, sorry. So then your mastering engineer will then kind of get it up to levels. And like right now, you can get up to 0 decibels. You know, often you'll find pop music today is kind of as loud as it can be, but sometimes they might add a limiter and make it like -0.3 decibels or something like that. But it's kind of personal preference as to how loud you want it, and also what's relevant to the genre that you're making.
Brilliant, thank you. And then finally, somebody asked about courses, and I know you've already mentioned the fantastic music production for women course, but they asked about, can you recommend any low-cost courses that someone can take part-time in music production? Do you have a lower cost option, or do you know of any other courses out there that you'd recommend?
We do. So if you want to just join the Intro to Music Production course, it's £25 a month. That's included in the Master Your Music course, so you'll get that as well. But you can find that on our website. It's just called Intro to Music Production course. So that was kind of split up in a way that I would have found really useful in an intro course that I couldn't really find. But other courses, like obviously there's, you know, people like Point Blank Music that have their own courses and everything, but from what I know, they're maybe about £2,000 for about 3 months or something. So it can be a bit expensive, but I'm not too sure outside of that as well.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there, but I just want to say a huge thank you to Xylo for that fantastic workshop today. I think we all learned loads, and it was really interactive as well, which is great. Also wanted to just say what fantastic work Music Production for Women are doing in terms of increasing the number of women coming through in music production, because I know this is a really horrendous stat about, I think it's less than 5% of music producers are women, and we really want to see that changing. So thank you, Xylo, for all the wonderful work you're doing, and thank you all for joining us today. I hope you found this session informative and helpful, and as Xylo said, if you've got any further questions, you can email her at xylo.aria@musicproductionforwomen.com, or you can contact us at the ISM Trust on inquiries@ismtrust.org. And please fill in our post-webinar survey, so you can find that in the chat, and this will help us to improve our services and offer more free professional development to musicians. And as I mentioned, the webinar recording will be sent out to all of you by email, and it will be available to watch on our website. And we'll also send you some useful links that we've shared during the webinar, plus some information about our next webinar, which is on Thursday, the 21st of September, and that's on Ofsted and music in schools. So if you've enjoyed this webinar and would like to support the work of the ISM Trust, please do consider becoming a friend of the ISM Trust, signing up to our newsletter, or making a donation, and you can find out more on our website. And finally, it just leaves me to say thank you again for watching, and we very much hope to see you at another ISM Trust event soon. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.